Everybody, and welcome back to the course. In this video, we're going to learn all about arrays in C#. So as we know, variables store a single piece of information. Arrays are basically variables that contain several pieces of information. So for example, imagine we wanted to store the names of all the players in the game. If we use variables, we would have to create, let's say, 5 different string variables, each one containing one name. Arrays let us group together all those names into one single variable. Or maybe we wanted to store all the health values of our players. Instead of creating 5 different integer variables for each player's health, we could create an array that would group all those variables together. So the way that we create an array is as follows. We first of all specify the type of the array, just like variables, so we can choose from strings, ints, floats, or bools. But what's different is that we add a pair of square brackets right after that type. Then we give our array a name, so in this example I'll call it player names. Then we add an equal sign. On the other side of the equal sign, we need to create a new array, so to do that we'll type in the keyword new, then again we'll type the type of array, and we'll add the square brackets. So this will create an empty array. The way that we will fill our array is by adding a pair of curly brackets, and then we could just type in the different values that we want to store in our array, and we will separate them with commas. Alright, now that we know how to create an array, let's learn how to select specific items from the array we created. So this is really simple. Imagine that we wanted to print out the first item from our array, so in this case the name Bob. Well, we will just type in the name of the array, so player names, then we will add a pair of square brackets, and inside those square brackets, we will specify the index of the item we want to select. So it's important to remember that indexing in C# starts at 0, which means that if we want to select the first item, we will type in a 0 inside of the square brackets. If we wanted to select the second item, we would type in a 1, and so on. We can also edit the values of already existing array items just by selecting the element that we want to edit, and then we'll add an equal sign, and then we will just type in the new value. It's important to note that you cannot add new array items into an already existing array at runtime. There exists a special type of array called lists, which will enable you to do that, but they are a little bit more advanced, so we aren't going to cover them in this course. So instead of defining what the array contains when you are creating the array, we can actually just remove the curly brackets and add a number inside of the square brackets. This number will signify the size of the array, in other words, how many items can it store. So for example, if I type in a 3, it means that this array can store no more than 3 items. Once that is done, I can assign values to those items just by selecting them one by one and by assigning the value that we want inside of the start function, for example. One last important thing about arrays is the length property of an array. So if you type in the name of the array and then say .length, it will actually return the number of items in the array. Alright, let's now recap everything that we covered by coding something else. Let's start off by creating an integer array called random numbers that will be equal to a new integer array with a size of 3. So this array can contain no more than 3 items. Now inside of the start function, we will select the first item of the array by typing random number 0, and then we will set it equal to random.range, and we will type in 0, 100 to generate a random number between 0 and 100. We will then print out the value of the item that we just created. I'll then copy and paste those 2 lines twice more, and I will change the indexes to 1 and 2. Now, if you save and press play, this will work fine. We will create an array of 3 random integers, and we will be printing them out just fine. But our code isn't dry. We're repeating ourselves too much. So let's change our code, let's refactor our code, and let's use a for loop to achieve the same result, writing less lines. So I'm going to create a for loop with a variable I that will start at 0, that will continue to loop as long as I is less than the number of elements in the random number array. So I'll type in random numbers.length, and then I'll increment I by 1 each time we go through the loop. So if the array has 6 items, this loop will run 6 times. If there are only 3 items, it will only run 3 times. Inside of the curly brackets, I will simply use the 2 lines of code that we made before. So in other words, the line where we generate a random number and store it into the array, and the other where we print the item. But instead of hard-coding the value for the index, we'll use the variable I. So because I starts at 0, the first time we go through the loop, we'll be printing out the item of index 0. Then I will be equal to 1, so we will be printing the item of index 1. And finally, of course, I will be equal to 2, and so we will be printing the item of index 2. Alright, we can now save our script, and you will see that everything works exactly like before, but our code is now much more dry. Okay, that's the end of this introduction video to arrays. I'll see you in the next video where you'll have lots of challenges so you can train using arrays, loops, functions, variables, and everything that we've seen so far in this course. I'll see you over there. Cheers.